Welcome back to our channel. In a quiet village by the Red River in Vietnam, there lived a woman named Mrs. Mai. Her life was a tapestry woven with threads of hardship, resilience, and an unwavering love for her only son, Thang. Picture this, a modest home nestled among lush vegetable gardens and towering bamboo groves, where the sounds of nature harmonized with the rhythm of daily life. This was Phu Minh, a humble and peaceful place where simplicity reigned supreme, and where Mrs. Mai had spent her entire life. From a young age, Mrs. Mai faced the trials of life head-on. She became a widow at a tender age, a burden that could have crushed her spirit. But instead, it ignited a fierce determination within her. Raising Thang became her singular focus, her reason to wake up each day and toil tirelessly in the rice fields, weaving mats to make a living. The dream that fueled her every effort was simple yet profound. She wanted her son to have a brighter future than she had known. Thang, on the other hand, was a quiet and reserved boy. He had a gentle nature, often overshadowed by the more boisterous personalities of his peers. While other boys in the village played and laughed, Thang was introspective, often lost in his thoughts. Mrs. Mai cherished him deeply, for he was her pride, her joy, and the embodiment of her sacrifices. She dreamed of a day when her hard work would bear fruit, when Thang would rise above their circumstances and build a life filled with opportunity. As the years went by, Thang grew into a man, yet he remained single, much to the concern of his mother. In a village where marriages were celebrated and families expanded, whispers began to circulate. Neighbors speculated that no woman wanted to marry into a poor family. For Mrs. Mai, these whispers were like a relentless storm, causing her immense sorrow. She worried endlessly about her son's future, fearing that he would remain alone, burdened by the weight of their modest existence. Determined to change their fate, Mrs. Mai sought the help of a matchmaker from a neighboring village. After many discussions and a few anxious nights, she arranged for Thang to meet Ha, a beautiful yet sharp-tongued woman. Ha, nearly 30, came from a family that looked down on Mrs. Mai's humble circumstances. Still, the marriage was arranged, and Mrs. Mai poured her heart into making the wedding a memorable occasion. It was a simple affair, attended only by a few neighbors and relatives. But for Mrs. Mai, it was the happiest day of her life. She envisioned a future filled with laughter, grandchildren, and the comfort of knowing her sacrifices had finally paid off. But the reality that followed was a far cry from her dreams. From the moment Ha moved in, her dissatisfaction became painfully clear. She constantly complained about the small, cramped house and the rural lifestyle. "This house is too small, I can hardly breathe," she would say, her words cutting through Mrs. Mai like daggers. Yet, the elderly woman remained silent, unwilling to add fuel to the fire of discontent. Thang, who was inherently gentle and passive, found himself caught in the middle, torn between the woman he loved and the mother who had sacrificed everything for him. As time went on, Ha's discontent grew into resentment, and she issued an ultimatum: "If your mother doesn't leave, I will, and don't expect me to give you a child while she's still here." Those words hung in the air like a dark cloud, suffocating any hope for peace. Thang, unable to stand up to his wife, chose silence over confrontation. The tension in the house became unbearable. Mrs. Mai, sensing the rising storm, made a heartbreaking decision. One cold night, with a heavy heart, she packed a few belongings, only a few clothes and an old scarf that Thang had given her years ago, and left the house without a word. As she stepped out of the home she had built with her own hands, tears streamed down her face. Each footstep echoed on the empty village path, taking her further into the unknown. She had no idea where she would go or what her future held. But she was determined not to disrupt her son's life any longer. For the first few nights, she found shelter under a bridge, her heart heavy with the weight of her choice. She survived on scraps of food given to her by kind strangers and endured the biting cold of northern Vietnam's winter. Her health began to deteriorate, but her spirit remained unbroken. One day, at a local market, she encountered an elderly street vendor roasting sweet potatoes. Recognizing her plight, the vendor offered her a roasted sweet potato and some advice. "If you want to survive, learn to make a living," He said, I can teach you how to roast sweet potatoes and sell them. It's not much, but it's honest work. Grateful for this opportunity, Mrs. Mai began her apprenticeship, learning the art of roasting sweet potatoes. It was a far cry from the life she once knew, but for the first time in months, she felt a flicker of purpose reignite within her. With determination, she saved enough money to buy a small cart and started selling roasted sweet potatoes on the bustling streets of the city. The work was exhausting, her hands calloused from the heat, but she found joy in the smiles of her customers. Her kindness and humility won their hearts, and soon she became a familiar sight, a beacon of warmth in the midst of the city's chaos. As time went on, Mrs. Mai's business thrived. She expanded her offerings to include roasted corn and steamed buns, each new dish a testament to her resilience. Her reputation for quality food and a warm demeanor attracted a loyal customer base. Despite her success, she remained frugal, saving every penny she earned, not for herself, but to help others in need. She frequently shared food with the homeless and donated small amounts to local charities, her heart swelling with the joy of giving. Back in her village, rumors of Mrs. Mai's newfound success began to spread like wildfire. Ha, now a mother herself, heard the stories and saw an opportunity. Believing that Mrs. Mai had become wealthy, she persuaded Thang to visit his mother and bring her back home. She's still your mother, Ha said, masking her true intentions beneath a veneer of concern. We should take care of her now that she's old. Thang, caught between love and obligation, reluctantly agreed. When Thang and Ha arrived in the city, they found Mrs. Mai at her food stall. She had aged and weakened, yet she radiated a quiet strength that was impossible to ignore. The reunion was emotional. Thang cried and apologized for the past mistakes he had made, the weight of his choices pressing heavily on his shoulders. In contrast, Ha tried to convince Mrs. Mai to return to the village, promising to care for her. But Mrs. Mai, with the wisdom that only comes from experiencing life's trials, saw through her daughter-in-law's facade. With a calm and steady voice, she replied, I have made my choice. My life is here now. I don't need anything from you. The words hung in the air, a declaration of her newfound independence. She revealed that she had donated most of her savings to charity, helping those less fortunate and supporting causes close to her heart. Ha was taken aback, her disappointment palpable. Why would you give it all away? She asked, unable to hide her frustration. Mrs. Mai answered with a wisdom that resonated deeply. Money comes and goes, but kindness and compassion leave a lasting legacy. I've learned that the greatest wealth is in giving, not receiving. This encounter profoundly affected Thang, prompting him to reflect on his own shortcomings. He vowed to become a better person, inspired by his mother's strength and selflessness. However, Ha struggled to reconcile her disappointment with the reality of Mrs. Mai's choices, her heart wrestling with conflicting emotions. In the years that followed, Mrs. Mai continued her work, earning the respect and admiration of those around her. She had become a symbol of resilience and kindness, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, one can rise above and make a difference. Her story, passed down throughout the village, served as a profound lesson. True wealth is not measured by material possessions but by the impact one has on the lives of others. For Thang and Ha, Mrs. Mai's legacy was a constant reminder of the value of family and the consequences of their actions. Though they could never undo the past, they carried her lessons in their hearts, striving to live with greater compassion and integrity. They learned that life is not just about the choices we make but also about the love we share and the kindness we extend to others. This is the story of Mrs. Mai, a woman who journeyed from rejection to reverence, teaching us that life's greatest challenges can become the most profound opportunities for growth and transformation. Her tale is not just about hardship but about the power of resilience, the importance of kindness, and the legacy we leave behind. We all face struggles, but it is how we rise from them that ultimately defines us. Mrs. Mai's journey is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the unwavering belief that we can create a better world, one act of kindness at a time. So, as we reflect on Mrs. Mai's life, let us remember that each of us has the power to make a difference. Our choices, no matter how small, can ripple through the lives of others, creating waves of change and compassion. Let us strive to embody the lessons she imparted, carrying her spirit of resilience and kindness into our own lives. After all, in a world that can often feel overwhelming, it is the simple acts of love and generosity that remind us of our shared humanity. Mrs. Mai's story is a call to action, urging us to rise above our circumstances and to be the light in someone else's darkness. Together, we can honor her legacy by embracing the power of kindness and compassion, ensuring that her story continues to inspire generations to come. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of persistence, legacy, and family. If you found inspiration in this story, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Your support drives more meaningful stories like this. Together, let's continue to explore the power of resilience, the beauty of connection, and the importance of leaving a lasting impact on the world around us. Thank you for watching.